All right, we on? Cool, cool, cool. So, this is something that I'm going to start doing pretty much every night or every other night. However, it won't be on this channel. I'm going to create another channel exclusively for reading, right? So, tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to read some of the Negro question part four, the missing link, and it's written by Lee Cummings. So, I'm going to hold this up to the camera. All right. So, let me introduce myself, right? For those who don't know me, who've never watched any of my videos. It's been a while since I put videos up on this channel. Um, Primarily because I know this used to be a gaming channel with Smash Brothers. So I know some of the folks who are on my subscriptions or in my subscriptions. I don't even know how you verbalize that, but I know some of them don't get down with the Hebrew Israelites and they're not with our message. Um, I wish they would just leave, right? But you know how it is when people, you know, basically want to stand and impede something. That they would rather just stand there and be a pain in the ass than just leave, right? So anyway, so I'm gonna bring out a couple of scriptures, just to go ahead and get things moving. So one of the things that I bring out when I go to the streets now and I preach, trying to reach out to Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. And just so y'all know, I'm gonna keep it PG as best I can, right? Because I'm not trying to get this channel taken down. But one of the things that we have to focus on when we go out to the streets, the highways and the byways to teach our people is we have to literally tell our people repetitiously who they really are. And that's something that our people don't believe because they don't read, right? And one of the things that we are to do in the Bible is we are to study, continuously refine ourselves so that we can be scholarly presences in our communities and we can guide our people, right? So I'm gonna read a couple of scriptures, probably about three or four, and then I'm gonna get right back. I'm gonna get right into the book, back into the book. But I'm gonna get into the book. We're gonna read about maybe about 10 pages because the print in this book is really big. So, and what I'm gonna do is because the graphics in here are in black and white, I'm going to give the name of each painting before I hold it up to the camera so I can show whoever's looking, right? But let's get to the reading of the Bible. So this is Revelations 1 and 3. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. Right? So during such a tumultuous time as the present, right, it is a blessing to be one who reads. Um, Whether you be a man or a woman, young or old, rich or poor, it is a boon to one to make it a point to acquire knowledge and to seek out and search out knowledge. Right? That is one of the primary problems with our people today. They are not avid readers, and as a result, they don't know the first thing that they should be doing in order to find out their history so that they can define the present and make predictions or set trends for the future, right? This is Second Timothy 2:15. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So even the Most High God, through his prophets, is imploring the Israelite people to study to show themselves approved. This is something that our people are not accustomed to doing. And one of the reasons why we're not accustomed to doing this anymore is because during slavery, we were outlawed from reading under threat of death. This is something, again, that we have to take to heart because wisdom and knowledge is going to be the stability of our times to come. Hell, I'm willing to argue that that is our stability and our strength today with so much uncertainty about us. I got one more scripture I want to bring out, okay? We're going to go to First Thessalonians. I believe it's First Thessalonians 5. Almost. Yep. So, one of the things that I'm going to be saying today, or I'm going to be talking about, are the real Europeans, right? The real people of Europe, the real so-called people of Britain, the real so-called people of Ireland, the so-called people of Scotland, Wales, Normandy, etc., etc. One of the things that our people don't understand when it comes to their history is that their history did not begin with slavery. Slavery is something that primarily affected the so-called black man or the so-called Negro, starting in about 1619. Now, it was happening before then, but it really got into its swing in about 1619. And most of our people, as far as their historical knowledge, that's as far back as it goes. And as a result, they don't know that they were the kings of Europe. They don't know that the people who brought countries like Spain, Portugal to prominence were our people, the Moors, right? Most of our people don't know the pioneers who set the foundations for nations like Germany, nations like France, nations like the Netherlands. All these places were populated by our people. That's why when you go to these places today, they have castles that have stood the test of time. They have simple buildings that have stood the test of time because our people used to be the master architects of that age. And what we built, has pretty much endured all the elements. It's endured all the modernization that's taken place in these nations because what we did could not be replicated. That's one of the things that you notice about America. America is in the business of building something up only to have to tear it down 20, 30 years later. And when they don't have to tear it down, a monumental amount of fixing and upkeep and maintenance is required. But I'm saying that the original Europeans were my people, right? So-called black people. The Bible says something about people or anyone who makes a claim, especially a claim so gravid and monumental as the people of Europe today are not the people of Europe from yesterday. Because if you ask them, they will definitely attempt to affirm that they are those people. But this is how you know the difference. This is First Thessalonians 5 and 21. Prove all things and hold fast that which is good. So you're supposed to prove what you say. And that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to bring out a source, right? And just to give kind of a little background on the structure of how this is going to go. Like I said, I'm probably going to read a couple of pages, probably about 10 pages. Yeah, that'll give us one little nice graphic in here. Okay, and if we do 10 pages every day in this book, that gives us about maybe a little bit more than about a week of content. So that's cool. So we'll go ahead and do that. Right. So let's go ahead and get it cracking. This is the Negro question, part 4, The Missing Link, by author Lee Cummings. This is the preface. This book has been designed to shed light on the missing link between the two sciences, history and genetics. We have been trained to trust without question what we are taught in the academia of the United States. Now, it's called absolutism, right? Now, a new science has emerged that has produced results that are in direct conflict with the history that is being taught in the classrooms. That science is genetics, but what is this issue? And sometimes I might stammer a bit. This book is in need of of an editor, but the information in this book, it's the sources are cited and all that stuff. So even if you have the book, you'll notice that there's some grammatical issues with the book, but that doesn't take away from the impact of the information that's here. Right? But going on, that science is genetics, but what is this history or what is this issue? This pebble in the shoe that is pitting genetics against history. The world history that is being taught in the classrooms omit the existence of the Black Scots, Black Irish, Black Brits, Black Italians, Black French, or Black Europeans that were sold directly into the American slave plantations. The history that is being taught in the classroom is in direct conflict with the eyewitnesses, the artifacts, DNA, and surnames of the blacks in America. This great omission has caused the public to view both institutions in a fraudulent and suspect manner. What is the solution to this problem? What is the missing link? The Negro question, part 4, The Missing Link, has the answer to make both sciences come together in a perfect, harmonious marriage. Neither of the two sciences possesses the link to bring cohesiveness to their respective fields. The secret lies in the past, in the writings of Professor Boyd Dawkins, in the Edict of Oliver Cromwell, in ancient artifacts, and in the essay of Benjamin Franklin. Their scholars, scientists, and historians are confused. Their institutions have failed them. Their money failed them. They have been deceived by the Renaissance, and blindness has taken hold on them all. The shining of light hurts their eyes, and they find shelter in the darkness. If you have read any of my books, you already know what this is. This is the next episode. Don't blink. Now, when he mentions Benjamin Franklin, he's likely talking about I think it's like a 14-page letter that Benjamin Franklin wrote, talking about the peopling of basically the North Americas and Europe. And Benjamin Franklin affirms that most of those people are tawny or black or dark skinned, and that there is a excessively few amount of pale skinned peoples. And he even mentions the nations where these tawny people are at, and he mentions nations like Germany, France. He mentions these nations because once upon a time it was common knowledge that our people were the rulers of Europe. We were the real Brits, the Scots, the Irish, right? The people who now claim to be British and Irish, they are of those ethnicities the same way that you put Ish at the end of another ethnicity that is at the pinnacle of the world right now. I wonder who that group of people is. We might read from Babylon to Timbuktu or the 13th tribe that talks about them directly, right? But that's way, way, way down the line. Let's go ahead and keep going. So obviously, got your table of contents here. I don't know why my camera's so blurry. Oh, it's because it's dirty. Okay. Hold on, y'all. Yeah, man, this is as rough as it's gonna get, right? Because it only gets better from here. I didn't know my camera was dirty. Damn. Well, hold on, y'all. All right, let's see if we can get it now. If it can't, that's cool. All right, let's. Nope. All right, that's fine. So we've got chapter 1, the eyewitness period. Now, what we have here is a picture, an Irish priest, right? And it's Saint Brendan, the navigator, Irish priest from Ireland. James Anderson, 1911, Riddles of Prehistoric Times. This little black Welshman, Scot, Celt, settled in France, Guanches of the Canary Islands, or island, France, Ireland, Spain, and the British Isles are islands in all over Europe. So, in other words, he's saying that our people settled all these lands. Again, it used to be common knowledge. That's why you have all types of seemingly racist, cultural traditions that are kept in Europe, like with Zwarte Piet in the Netherlands. There's a reason why they're doing that. They're not doing that simply because they hate black people. See, our people don't know enough about history, and we get caught up in the shock value of seeing them do that and putting on the makeup and having the curly hair wigs on. But if you understood the history, they're truly honoring, in their minds, a person who was of our lineage. Now, what was that person doing there? Well, if you understood how he got there and that he was surrounded by many people who looked just like him and were of the same blood, you'd realize that that was just his home. Right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cite a couple of sources with some quotes, right? Because he has that near the front of his book. So anybody who doubts his scholarship, one of the things that I like about the author Lee Cummings is that everything that he puts in his book, he cites the source for it. So if you want to go behind him and do the research and the scholarship to truly understand the information that he's bringing out and where it came from and to verify its authenticity, you can do so. Right. The first entry here is Professor Winchell. Professor Winchell Alexander, Our Remote Ancestry, 1815 to 1900, collection of journals. And this is the quote. These short black men came from Atlantis, northern Africa, and they overran Europe. They were known as Britons. Another entry, Roman historian Tacitus, the origins of the Black Britons. You got to remember, right? Britannia or Britain was one of the provinces that was conquered by the Roman Empire. So at one point, the Roman Empire controlled that land. But what a lot of our people don't know is that the Roman Empire did not have a singular contiguous history. You had the Roman Empire, and then when after the 12, I believe what are they called? The 12 emperors of Rome. After they got done ruling, the so-called I'm trying to figure out how to talk around some of my vernacular, right? The paler folk who were in rulership fell out of rulership, and then you had the onset of something called the Holy Roman Empire. And I would implore anybody listening to definitely look these things up. All right. Look up the Roman Empire and then look up the Holy Roman Empire just to establish the history of the years from when one ruled and then the other took over. But I'm going to keep reading here. Right? So, from the Roman historian Tacitus, the origins of the Black Britons. The Iberians are black people with curly hair. Anthropological Review, Society of London, Volume 8. This is another entry. Joseph Ritson, Annals of Caledonian Picts and Scots, Volume 2, pages 7 and 27. The Picts, Brits, they're the same people, right? The Picts or Brits are brown complexioned with curly hair. This is another entry by Ivan Sertima, African Presence in Early Europe, page 225. And this is his quote. The Britons look like the Ethiopians. I actually want to bring up a scripture for that. All right. And you're going to hear me clacking. And this is in relation to the Israelites. And it's in the book of Amos 9 and 7. Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord? Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Kir? So when it talks about us being as the Ethiopians unto the Most High God, the reason why it's saying this is because of our appearance, right? We appear very similar to the Ethiopians, though we are not the same people. But we do have a very similar complexion, and we have similar hair texture, and in certain ways, we have similar facial structure. Although you can definitely tell an Ethiopian from a so-called American black man. There's a very distinctive look, unless there has been some intermixing. And just so anybody knows, right, I want to establish this right off the bat, because this is how you know who your father is. This might be something that I just put in the description of every video I put up, because it's important that we understand that you are who your father is according to the Bible. This is Numbers 1 and 18. And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. According to the number of the name are the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. So the Bible, the way you are put in one ethnicity over another is by the house of your father. Now let's extrapolate that logically. I'm a so-called black man, right? If I have a son, he's a so-called black man. If he has a son, it's a so-called black man. It doesn't matter who he sires the children with, right? Now imagine that my son has a white woman or a so-called Japanese woman. Let's use Japanese, right? The child that comes from their union might appear with some of the Japanese features, but it's still my blood, my lineage, my seed, and his son and his son. So it doesn't matter how they look. They can literally not appear to be black at all, right? But they're still of that seed line. That goes for every ethnicity on the planet. So when people put ish at the end of an ethnicity, right? If they say I'm British, that is a distinctive group or a distinction from the original Brits. Same with Scottish from the Scots, Irish from the Irish, right? So this is Joseph Written. I'll read it again. Annals of Caledonian Picts and Scots, Volume 2, page 7 and 27. The Picts, Brits are brown complexioned with curly hair. This is Ivan Sertima, African Presence in Early Europe, page 225. And he says the Britons look like the Ethiopians. This is Albert Churchward in 1912 from the book Origins and Evolution, PGS dash R pages. Why does it say pages here, PGS, and then pages different up? Hey, I'm gonna be giving personal commentary as I read, right? I ain't gonna just be mindlessly reading the book. That's stupid. But either way, so pages 12 through and 12 and 13, and he talks about the Basques, right? The Black Basques, Basque, were exterminated from Europe. Now, when you actually start looking at the scant presence of so-called black people, you've got to start asking, if we were the original people of Europe, well, where we at? Sources like this will tell you. They made a direct and deliberate effort to either deport our people or exterminate our people. This is from Professor Boyd Dawkins, Our Earliest Ancestors, Bygone Days, a lecture delivered in the public hall in Cooleyhurst, Manchester. And this is on the, I believe, January 8th of 1879. And he says the ancient Britons, Irish, Scots, are a short black people. And he cites this from pages 103 through 107. And then we got a few more, then we're going to read a little bit, and we're going to get more into the book. This is from Dr. Thurnan from the Nature Journal of Science, page 92. From the evidence at hand, it seems that the Iberian black man occupied the whole of Western Europe at one time. This is from Professor Huxley in 1870. The Iberian Race, page 332. The Iberian Basques' black bones have been found all over Europe with his animals. Because when you read about the Israelites, or especially the Southern Kingdom, right? We were primarily herdsmen, like herding sheep and cattle, and we were somewhat nomadic. So we did not stray far from the activities of our ancestors. We were doing the same thing all over Europe. Whenever we're given the chance of rulership, that's what we do, right? That's our natural behaviors. That's why Jake here in America, we have a case of wanderlust. We want to travel, and we don't want to travel in conventional ways, right? We want to walk about the earth. We want to experience the earth in its glory. But that is not possible here in America because the earth is quite desolate and barren right now. So, but that is the drive that is within us, and we see that in our ancestors. This is yet another way that we know the characteristics of them in yesterday mimic the characteristics of us today. I have inserted the writings of 8 English, and they are white, historians to show you that our white brothers who were closer to the epicenter didn't have a problem telling the truth about the original inhabitants of Europe. Now, he said our white brothers. I'm going to be real with you. They're our brothers, but they broke the brotherly covenant according to the Bible. And I want to prove that, right? Because some of these sources are going to be saying things like we and us and all this other stuff. And it's important to understand that though we cite these sources, you have to keep it in a certain perspective, right? Because what brother put you in slavery for over 500 years? What brother does buck breaking? And this book has a lot of art in it that details the tortures that they were doing to us, not just in Europe, but basically on the west coast of Africa, well, mainly in Europe. But he alludes to the tortures that were going on in the Americas and in Africa, and West Africa. But, so this is Amos 1 and 11. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, And for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. So, although he is our brother, he has casted off all pity when dealing with us. And he has pursued us relentlessly with war, death, and the sword. And like it says here, he has casted off all pity, and his anger has torn perpetually, and he has kept his wrath forever. So when you really start to understand who's who according to the Bible, you'll realize that the Israelites have a group of people who hate them specifically, and everywhere they go, that rivaling group is right behind them, praying for their downfall, doing everything to sabotage them, and attempting to sell them into slavery whenever it looks like they have an opportunity. That's no different than what's going to be described here. Although he doesn't quote the Bible, he actually quotes a little bit, which is kind of surprising. But his book is not based on biblical principle. You still can't get away from the biblical narrative because you're talking about God's chosen people. Right? So these Welshmen, Britons, Irishmen, Frenchmen, Russians, Germans, Italians, and Swedes were in Europe thousands of years before the English arrived in 449 AD. And this will be proven by the writings of one Professor Boyd Dawkins, professor of geology at Manchester University, London. Professor Boyd Dawkins was invited to speak in the public hall in Manchester, London, January 18th, 1879. And in his lecture, he gives a detailed account of the people who originally inhabited Europe. And without blushing, this is what he said. Now, this is going to be one big long quote from Professor Boyd Dawkins. All right. And this was in, I'm just going to read the preface here. Professor Boyd Dawkins, or the header, I should say. Professor of Geology, Manchester University, London, 1879. Our remote ancestry, pages 95 through 106. The original people of Britain, France, Spain, and England were short black men about 5 feet 6 inches in height. This is one of the reasons why you have so many black men walking about who fit this exact description of being between the height of about 5'6" and about 6 foot. Typically, we don't get much taller than that. We don't deviate from that range. Every once and again, you might have brothers who are like 6'2", 6'5". Every so often, remotely, you have a Shaquille O'Neal who's 7 feet. But for the most part, these are the dimensions that we occupy as a people and as a race. Right? They were in England when our fathers, and we got to remember, Professor Boyd Dawkins is a so-called white man. Right? They were in England when our fathers, white English, invaded the land in 449 AD. Our fathers were a warlike people who by 607 AD had pushed the Basque west into Wales, Cumberland, Westmoreland, the Highlands of Scotland, and Devon. These black people boasted that they were the citizens of the Roman Empire. Remember, I said that Holy Roman Empire. Why would it be holy? Because the Israelites are a holy people. Holy means separate. So it was a separate leg of the Roman Empire, and it lasted about 1,000 years. The Byzantium Empire. Otherwise, occupying the time span known as the Dark Ages. But, so, these black people boasted that they were citizens of the Roman Empire. The Welsh, or ancient Britons, were in possession before the Romans ever came here. These black Basques, or Britons, have brought the knowledge of iron and bronze with them. So they ushered in the Iron and the Bronze Age in those regions. The iron and bronze technology will be proven perfectly when I show you the German tapestry. These people were herdsmen. They possessed the short-horned ox, the horned sheep, the goat, pig, and the horse. Evidence of their civilization can be seen all over the continent of Europe, as well as throughout the British Islands, extending as far as Germany and Switzerland, and even to France and Spain. These black people originated from the Iberian Peninsula, and are a fragment of the old Spanish population. Now, one of the things that a lot of our people don't understand about the relationship between Africa and Europe, when you go into Northwest Africa, when you go into the nation of Morocco, there is a part in the northwestern corner of Morocco where essentially there's a small offshoot. It's almost like a little jagged horn or a point. And then the Iberian Peninsula or Portugal and Spain, there is a small jagged point that comes down from Europe. And they get within about 100, maybe even less than that, about 50 miles of one another. So if you really wanted to, if you were some type of like, Olympic swimmer, you could literally swim from Europe to Africa. But when you take a geology or ge- geography, man, when you take geography in high school and in college, typically they don't teach you about these things because, as far as our history is concerned, to them, we are going to stay in Africa. That's the only place you've been. The only thing you've ever been doing is sitting in a mud hut, swinging on a vine, eating fried chicken. Some way, somehow, KFC was there. Right? That's all they're concerned about. So it goes on. Evidence of their civilization can be seen all over the continent of Europe, as well as throughout the British Isles, extending as far as Germany and Switzerland, and even to France and Spain. These black people originated from the Iberian Peninsula and are a fragment of the old Spanish population. They were in France, Spain, Ireland, Britain, and Scotland. One of the techniques that I like to employ when detailing my research is to try to get as close to the point of the event as I can. In this case, Professor Boyd was right there, and he mentioned seeing the specimen of the black bosque from different parts of Europe and states that if you laid them next to each other, you would not be able to tell one corpse from another. Now, why would he be talking about a corpse? Remember, he said that his people were a warlike people. And we already established through one of the sources that we could probably verify at one point in time as we get through with this. But I would love to verify that source where it states that they made an extermination attempt on our people. But either way, the purpose of this section of this book is to prove in the beginning that the historians of the 18th and 19th century had no problem describing the blackness of the early Europeans. Benjamin Franklin, Professor Boyd Dawkins, and Albert Churchward gave us an eyewitness account of the world order in their generation. Dr. Albert Churchward's eyewitness account gives us a grim description of what happened to the black presence in Europe. The good doctor states that the black became extinct or exterminated by the time he gave his lecture in 1912. Now that's important because I believe, when was the last ruler? Dude in World War II. There he is. I'll confirm that at a later time. There's a black leader that I wanted to confirm who was one of the final leaders of his respective nation, being the so-called Black Man of Europe. Um, but once he was gone, he was basically completely whited out. But either way, it is of extreme importance that we begin this discussion with the eyewitness accounts of the English historians concerning the Old World Order. It has become obvious to me in my research that the ancient medieval and early 20th century historians were describing the Old World Order in their respective generations. These historians describe a world in which the blacks were in power all over the earth, and from this vantage point, we shall spring forward into the future to see the secrets of the past. We're on page 7. So. So this is page 8, and it starts with the header of the chapter name, chapter 2, the Scottish Kings of England. And we have a picture here of King James. Right? King James, yeah, I need to take a cloth to the camera. It's got some oil on it or something. But either way, so the kings of medieval Europe were our people, right? And King James was no exception. If you could look up his one of his paintings, let me see if I can find it. Now, when you conventionally search for any of these kings, what you will get is you will get a bunch of whitewashed images, right? Because when the Edomites came into power, what they wanted to do is they wanted to erase the presence of those who ruled before them as best as they could. Here. And see, if you could get a King James Bible from the 1500s, those Bibles used to have pictures in them. And those pictures were of our people. Oh, yeah, the Edomites are at work. This. Here we go. So there is a site that is really good about this, and it's called realhistorywww.com. Realhistorywww.com. And it's a brother who basically has all types of history from Russia to Britain, all over Europe, all over the world, talking about our people and how they were the true rulers. I'm trying to see if he has King James on here. Yeah, this brother has a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. There he is. That's the picture that I'm talking about right there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it in the chat. I know ain't nobody here, but anybody who watches this will be able to see it. Bam. So there is a link to realhistorywww.com, and this is talking about the history of Black Britain, or just Britain, because we're the original Brits. And it's got pictures on there that proves what I'm saying. And he cites sources as well, though not as well, of course, as Lee Cummings here, because this is actually for a static book, whereas his is for a website where he has far more room and far more flexibility to include information than other places. But either way, so I know that this image of a Black King James can be a little confusing because of your Western education, but this is the truth that is known by the rich and the elite in the world. That was the reason I paraded all of the English historians and professors before I got into the bowels of this book. I had to get your mind ready to receive the truth. King James came from a long line of Black Scottish Stuart kings, 343 years of rulership in Scotland. The Stuarts not only ruled in Scotland, they ruled France, Spain, Ireland, England, Britain, and Wales. King James was able to rule all these lands because all of these people were of Iberian descent or black. They were the same people. If you look at the ball in his hands, it represents world rulership. And there was only one other group of world leaders who used this type of symbolism, and they were the Byzantine Roman emperors. Remember, they told the English that they were Roman citizens. This is proof. There was another man who made the same boast. And if you have wisdom, you know who I'm talking about. This is one of the signs of scholarship, when you are able to read the symbolism of images. In my research, I found out that the ancient Scottish was a tribe from northern or north northeastern Ireland. I'm going to say that again. In my research, I found out that the ancient Scottish was a tribe from northeastern Ireland, which means the Scots are really Irish. They're the same people. Why? Because black people ruled all of Europe. We were all the same people. That's also a reason why there was so little war. There was so little inner conflict. Not to say we didn't have any conflict whatsoever, but there was so little inner conflict that could fray the strength of the kingdom in and of itself. Because why would you destroy your own kingdom and leave your own people destitute? See, that's one thing that we're dealing with here in America. This is a so-called melting pot. You've got a bunch of different people with a bunch of different ethnic backgrounds, and as a result, when America looks like it's on it's on the losing end, there are people who reside in America who rejoice at that because they know America oppresses their actual people in their native land, or they oppress their people in America. So this kingdom was able to persist for so long because the people had a common interest, and that was the welfare of their own people. If you look at the ball in his hands, you read that. Okay. Remember, they told the English that they were Roman citizens. This is the proof. There was another man who made the same boast, and if you have wisdom, you know who I'm talking about. This is one of the signs of scholarship, when you are able to read the symbolism of images. In my research, I found out that the ancient Scottish were a tribe from northeastern Ireland, which means the Scots are really Irish. So if I have seen an ancient Scot, I have seen an ancient Irishman, and if I've seen an ancient Irishman, then I've seen an ancient Briton. And then he shows the Scottish kings list here. Right, I'm trying to get it on there. So, yeah, my camera's super blurry. But either way, let me see. Damn, so blurry. But either way. So, as you can see from the Scottish kings list, King James I of England was a descendant of the Black Scottish kings who claimed the thrones of France, Spain, Ireland, England, Britain, Wales, and Scotland. In order to reinforce the testimony of Professor Boyd Dawkins, I have provided you with an image of other Stuart kings of Scotland. See, one of the things that he's done that I really appreciate is he's not just claiming these things, he's providing imagery. And when you look at these images, you could tell these are black men. Even like one of the things that might be a little bit harder today, since the so-called white man can go to a surgeon and get his lips plumped up. He can basically get tan in a can, or he can get what's that stuff, melanotan 3. And when you look at how melanotan is synthesized for use, it's inconclusive, right? So they can go and get things done so that they can appear more similar to us. So it's harder to envision them not being the people of yesterday. But when you look at these images and you realize that these are pictures from 300, 400, 500 years ago, where all these different surgical techniques and procedures didn't exist. So if it looks like a duck, it's a duck. If it looks like a so-called black man, it's us. Right? Now, this is titled King Charles I of Scots in England. Image location, book Leviathan. Author Thomas Hobbes, 1651. King Charles I had the unlucky distinction of having his head cut off by the English or white subjects in his realm. King Charles I wasn't the only one to suffer this indignation. When the English overran the country, they hung and decapitated the men, raped the women, burned the citizens at the stakes, and dashed the children against stones. One of the things that our people don't quite understand when us brothers go to the highways and the byways, when we talk about what we're going to do to our enemies, when we are given the chance, when we are raised up by our God and given the dominion, one of the things that our people don't quite understand is, why are we going to be dashing their kids against stones? As a matter of fact, most of our people don't even know that's in the Bible, right? This is Psalms 137:7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom. The children of Edom are these very same Englishmen that Lee Cummings is talking about in his book. And he just said that they were dashing our children against stones, raping our women, and exterminating our people. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, race it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed. Happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. One of the things about the Most High God's judgment is that it is like a ring. If you lead people into captivity, you go into captivity. If you kill with the sword, you will be killed with the sword. And if you dash people's children against rocks, your children will be dashed against rocks. This is a bit of history that is not taught nor reported in the annals of world history. Now, it has some pictures here. This is the Scottish king, Alexander II, in 1198 AD. This looks like a so-called black man here. Let me see if I can, yeah, there it is. That's a good angle. Right? Now, I know some people go, well, his hair looks a little bit straighter than y'all's. One of the things that people don't talk about is the variance of our people. Because you got to remember, you are who your father is. That says nothing about who your mother is. Right? So who's to say his mother wasn't a woman who had straight hair? She could have been. And as a result, this brother was born with dark, straight hair. And then you have an image of King Malcolm Longneck, King of Scotland in 1040 to 1093. And then the image location, it's a Getty image and Holton Archives image. So you should be able to search it online. You might have to go to a virtual museum or something like that, but you can find it. Again, when you look at these images, okay, yeah, that one's not showing up. See, they would love to tell you that these are so-called white men, but when you look at the hair, when you look at the features, the full lips, the big noses, that's our people. But that brings us to the end. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and get this last one. That way we can get everything out the way for King Charles I, right? So it has an image of King Charles being beheaded. It's real grainy, so I'm not even going to bother. What I might do is next time I'm going to prepare the images that I wasn't able to show. I'm going to prepare them on my iPad, and then I'm going to pull them up so that we can see them. Hopefully, I'll be able to find them in color. Some of these we need to see color. Like the image Moors versus the Wild Men. That needs to be in color because we need to understand that our people were fighting off the Edomites as they were laying siege to us, and we were losing power, and we were slowly being taken out and taken over, and our people were being preyed on. Right? But this image is the actual eyewitness account of the Black King Charles I, King of Scotland, who was being prepared to be beheaded by the English. I did everything in my power to try to pull this image off the canvas to show you the king's face, but I couldn't. This is all I could get. I suggest that you read one of these two books to get a better feel for what happened to the Irish, Scots, and Brits during the terror of Oliver Cromwell. Now, these books that he's mentioning, one is Oliver Cromwell, New Perspectives, and it's edited by Patrick Little. And then another book called Popular History of Ireland, and it has a woman sitting underneath a cross. I can't make out the author's name because it's blurred out. But y'all, that brings us to the end. I'm going to end this with the same two scriptures that I end my street preaching with. Because as Israelites, it's important that we understand that we have a very simple job. And that job is detailed in the Bible. This is Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Again, keep the commandments. That's our only job. And there ain't 10 of them. There's 613 of them. You can't keep all of them because there's commandments for women when they're on their cycle. There's commandments for men who go to war, stuff like that. Like if you don't have a son or if you just got married in the first year, you're not supposed to go to war. There are rules in the Bible for men and for women, and then there are unisex laws where everybody got to keep it, right? Now we're gonna go ahead and get this last one. We're gonna hang it up. This is Revelations 22 and 14. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. So I want to punctuate this little reading lesson by saying, Call Halal Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. That means all praises be unto Yahweh in the name of his son Yahushai. Kwam Yasharallah, rise Israel, and Shalom. All right. Peace to the elect. And again, keep studying, y'all. Not enough of our people are reading. That's why Jake is out here confused. We got to study and show ourselves approved. All right, y'all. Shalom.